It has been so long since we got a 2D Zelda game. Of course, back in 2019, we had the fantastic remake of Link's Awakening, but beyond that, the last time we got like a new 2D single-player Zelda game was A Link Between Worlds in 2013. So it has been a very, very long time, and even that game some might not consider fully original because it reuses the map from A Link to the Past. So today I want to discuss whether or not we could end up seeing a 2D Zelda game on the Nintendo Switch this year as Nintendo's big holiday game, if you will, for 2024. Let's talk about it. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Today, I wanted to really hone in and focus on 2D Zelda for this video because I am of the belief that we will be getting something Zelda this year. However, I guess I'm a little bit more pessimistic than a lot of the people watching my videos because I think it'll be a Hyrule Warriors game, which frankly I don't really want, but I think the timing lines up. Koei Tecmo has been very quiet on the Warriors front, aside from, of course, they just announced Dynasty Warriors Origins a couple weeks ago at the State of Play, but that's kind of where my head's at. If we are to get a Zelda game this year, I think it could be that. However, a lot of people in my comments making predictions for this Direct, even on Twitter and stuff, I see a lot of people saying it is finally time for a 2D Zelda game, be it either a remaster, a port, a remake, or an entirely new game, which would be way more exciting to me. I love 2D Zelda almost as much as 3D Zelda, quite frankly. I love A Link Between Worlds and Link's Awakening, Minish Cap, my beloved, and I would love to see something new for 2D Zelda. You know, we went so long without a truly new original 2D Mario game. We went for, what, 11 years between New Super Mario Bros. U, and then, of course, in between we had Mario Maker, which had some levels made by Nintendo, but it wasn't until Mario Wonder that we got something truly new for 2D Mario. So is it finally time we see that moment for 2D Zelda? I'm not personally convinced, but hopefully as I talk through this video, I will convince myself and allow myself to get hyped, because I would absolutely love that. Like, that would be best case scenario for this holiday season for me, as a game I could get really excited for. And especially as a game, when you look at the Switch lineup, and we're predicting the Switch lineup, like, what would they save for Switch 2 versus what would realistically make more sense on the current Switch? And I think 2D Zelda is, like, right on the line, right? It could make more sense to release it on Switch 1 right now, as is, but also it might make a little bit more sense to save it for the Switch 2 if the Switch 2 doesn't have another Zelda game releasing next year or something, if they want to have something strong for year one. But screw it, let's assume we are getting a 2D Zelda game this year. What would it be? I've seen a lot of people talking about remakes and even ports. In particular, a really common one I've been seeing is A Link Between Worlds, which I'm very kind of perplexed by. I know there were those rumors that there would be another 3DS remaster coming to the Switch, I think next year, but I don't know if we've just jumped to assuming that's A Link Between Worlds. I'd be completely fine with that. I love A Link Between Worlds. It's one of my favorite 2D Zelda games, top 3 for sure. But I gotta be honest, if we went this long without a 2D Zelda game, you know, obviously the ideal scenario is we get a new one, but if we go 5 years from Link's Awakening, and we just get A Link Between Worlds again, which was our last truly new one, at least in terms of single player, I don't know, man. I like, as excited as I would be to replay that game, I haven't played it since I was probably, 14 back in 2014. I don't know. It'd be cool, but out of every 2D Zelda game, that would probably be one of my, like, lesser choices, just because it's still relatively accessible. That game doesn't feel dated or anything when you go back and play it, and while it would be cool to have it on the Switch, I just don't know if it's one I'm really yearning for to get a remake or a remaster, a port, whatever you want to call it. So A Link Between Worlds, I love that game so much. I don't know if that's what I want to see personally. But I guess when trying to figure out what 2D Zelda game it would be, we kind of need to figure out who would be making it. It could be a smaller project from EPD3, the main Zelda team, and I'm sure whoever's making it, they'll be assisting, right? Aonuma will have his finger in this 2D Zelda pie in some way, but I think Grezzo is a lot more likely. Grezzo's last major project was Miitopia, which released in May 2021, and before that it was Link's Awakening in 2019, and of course they're also responsible for Luigi's Mansion on 3DS, but more notably Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D. So they have a lot of experience with Zelda, and of course they released the most recent 2D Zelda game being Link's Awakening back in 2019, so I would say they're the most likely. However, we still don't know who's doing Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. That game has been like the bane of Zelda speculation ever since it was announced a year ago, because we don't know if Grezzo's doing it, we don't know if Next Level Games were doing it internally, which is very possible that they would do a smaller project before the Switch 2, maybe getting their, Luigi's Mansion juices flowing in preparation for a probable Luigi's Mansion 4 on Switch 2. But even if Grezzo's doing Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, I feel like there's still plenty of room for them to have been working on a 2D Zelda game, especially when you look at what Miitopia is. It is just a remake of a 3DS game, and there was only 2 years in between it and Link's Awakening, so I can't imagine that was that resource intensive. Maybe the entire team was all hands on deck, but either way, that means they finished it in like 2 years, right? I guess it might have started a little bit before Link's Awakening, but I don't think it's that unlikely that maybe Luigi's Mansion 2 HD was like a smaller project, because admittedly, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD does not look like that much of a leap. I mean, it looks much better than the 3DS version, of course, but I don't think it's that far-fetched that maybe they were working on that as well as something else for Zelda, which is what they're most known for doing with Nintendo. Now, would this actually be a remake, right? If we're continuing the order of what games are being remade, we got a pseudo remake with A Link Between Worlds, we got Link's Awakening remade. Next up would be the Oracle games, if there's any truth to that pattern. I'd be perfectly fine with that. I've actually never played those games. Those are some of the few Zelda games I have not played to completion, so if those got remade, I'd be very keen on that. I do wonder if they're gonna do them, though, because for one, they put them on Switch Online, which usually is a death sentence, at least for the immediate future, but also, those games are made by Capcom. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I don't know, I guess for me, I'm just looking at that like, maybe they won't do the Capcom games. Maybe they won't do Oracles, and they won't do Minish Cap, or maybe it doesn't matter at all. I would love to see that. I wonder how they would do it. I'd assume they would put them into one game, right? They're not going to sell 2 Oracle game remakes at once. I really doubt that. So I would assume it'd be one package. I already mentioned A Link Between Worlds. That's been a very popular theory lately. But could another 2D Zelda remake make sense? I mean, those are the 2 really popular ones that people talk about now. But I've had this theory that the Switch would get a multiplayer Zelda game for a very long time. And I still think that should have happened. I'm not as convinced that it'll happen now as I was, let's say, 5 years ago when Link's Awakening came out, but something like a Forward Swords Adventures remake, honestly, that kind of makes sense to me. I've predicted it multiple times this year as a game that would release this holiday, and then eventually I was like, you know what, Hyrule Warriors makes more sense. But could we see a Four Swords or Four Swords Adventures remake? If we are to get a multiplayer 2D Zelda game on Switch, I'd prefer it be an entirely new thing, but I don't think it's that unlikely that they do Four Swords Adventures, or maybe even Triforce Heroes, to be honest. Just as a smaller project to kind of pad the release calendar as we anticipate the Switch 2's release next year, a 2D Zelda remake of a multiplayer game that realistically, no shade to either of these games. I like Triforce Heroes. I've never played Four Swords Adventures, but like, no one's played these games. Triforce Heroes, I think more so, but Four Swords Adventures especially, like, no one's played that game because it was just a pain in the butt to set up back on the GameCube. I think that would be a pretty cool one because, like I said, most people have not played it. But I would still definitely prefer something new entirely, as always. I feel like that should always be the desire, to get a new game. And then eventually maybe they go back and do Four Swords Adventures or Four Swords on another platform. But right now, in a year so full of remakes and remasters, I would prefer to see something entirely new. Now, ideal, pie in the sky, dream scenario is that it's a new single-player game. I want to be hyped for that. I want to expect that. I think it is not the most impossible thing to release on Switch this year. Grezzo has worked on an original 2D Zelda in the form of Triforce Heroes back in 2015. They co-developed it with EPD3. I think they have enough experience with the Zelda IP now to do their own original 2D game. I just don't think we should expect that. I would like it, but I feel like another multiplayer game does make more sense from them. If we got a 2D Zelda game, there's been a lot of talk of a Princess Zelda-led Zelda game. That'd be very cool. But I do think at this point, unfortunately, maybe, they will likely save that next big 2D single-player Zelda jump for the next console. I do definitely think it'll happen. For a while there with 2D Mario, people were like, oh, it's never going to happen, it's never going to happen. I was like, come on, guys, it's going to happen eventually. I think 2D Zelda is, frankly, just less important than 2D Mario. That's why they prioritize Mario Wonder. But I think 2D Zelda will get that moment eventually, that Mario Wonder reveal where it's like, oh, wow, this looks so good. It looks better than we thought it would. I think it might just take a little bit more time. As for a 2D Zelda this year, I think some sort of multiplayer remake or a remake of the Oracle games, or maybe even this port of A Link Between Worlds, which I wouldn't be that excited for. I mean, I would be to replay it, but at the same time, it was only one generation ago that we were playing it. I don't know. It'd be cool, but it wouldn't be the most hype reaction from me when Oracles are right there and Four Swords Adventures is right there. Like, I would prefer those over A Link Between Worlds, even though I love that game so much. And then, yeah, maybe a new 2D multiplayer game could make sense for this year. But for single player, like I said, not entirely impossible, but I'm not expecting it. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think it is finally time for a 2D Zelda game on the Nintendo Switch this holiday season? And what do you think it'll be? Do you think it'll be a remake, a port, a new game, a multiplayer game, a new multiplayer game? Like, where is your head at when it comes to 2D Zelda? Or do you think they'll just save it all for the Switch 2 at this point? I'm expecting some sort of Zelda holiday game this year. I do lean towards Hyrule Warriors still, I have to admit, even after making this video, but I would be pleasantly surprised to get a 2D Zelda game instead, even if it is just a remake. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.